And I'm still on the topic of leadership. I hope that we're okay on the backside. I see no one sitting there, so hopefully we're all set. So Exodus chapter 33, verses 11 through 17 says, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways so I may know and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, then do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me from your people, from all the other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you asked, because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name. Lord, would you please speak to our hearts and minister to us in a profound, deep, personal way as we look through your word. Lord, you've called every single one of us to be leaders because you've called every single one of us to go out and proclaim the good news. We are disciples of Christ, and we are to share the good news of Christ with everyone and anyone as you lead us to. So we're all leaders, Lord. Would you help us in Christ's name? Oh, amen. So becoming a persevering leader, Moses fits this, one who is persevering through difficult trials and difficult times. Perseverance, it basically requires three things, but not literally, although it could be: blood, sweat, and tears. And there are some of you, with the work that you have done through the years, you've given your share of blood, cutting your fingers and such, doing the things you do in carpentry and mechanics and such, and even all those cuts you can get from envelopes, trying to deliver envelopes from the post office. I mean, there are lots of ways that you can get cut. Blood, sweat, and tears. It's easy to become discouraged. It's easy for our students to become discouraged in the middle of high school. And they're a month or 2 months away from ending their semester and going to the next level. It's easy to be discouraged in college. It's easy when you're getting midway through in your career and you don't know where your career is going, and you're at that midpoint and things are tough and difficult, and it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy when you're kids, when your children who are born, and you can jump them bop them on your knee and have so much fun with them when they're 6 months old and 2 years old and 3 years old. But what happens when they're 13 and when they're 15 and when they're 17? And you say, oh, God, let them grow up. Because they're trying to. And they're trying to find themselves, and they're trying to identify who they are in life. And sometimes their mind is getting way ahead of where they are in their life because of our culture. If our kids had been growing up in the 1600s or 1700s or even 1800s, by the time they were 15 or 16 years old, they'd either be married and starting to have kids, or they would be out on a ship at sea, or they would be out with a musket gun fighting the British, or maybe they take the side of the British and they're fighting the rebels in the colonies. It is amazing how different life is from century to century to century. But that midsection, wherever we're talking about, that midsection in your marriage, when you wonder, will this marriage ever survive? That midsection is a hard place to be. It's a difficult place to be. Moses is in this midsection, and it is a difficult place for him. He spent 40 years in persevering under Pharaoh and having really for a time the lap of a luxury until he becomes a wanted man and flees at age 40. He spends the next 40 years in Midian, out in a desert, working for his future father-in-law. And life is difficult there. But he persevered in that wilderness. How did Moses persevere with Jethro? Undoing everything he knew as a son of the palace. And then from there to that burning bush and to another 40 years in the desert, wandering with 1 million people, leading them. Consider these 3 keys that we're going to look at today of what it's going to take for what it took for him, what it's going to take for you and me to persevere as followers of Christ, as disciples, as leaders. First, we must prepare for perseverance. Nothing like an easy one to start with. Prepare for perseverance. Before Moses endured 40 years in the wilderness, he spent 40 years in Midian, where, guess what? God formed him. Under the house of Jethro, learning about who God is. It's in that scenario, in that middle 40 years, that God formed him, shaped him, and prepared him, which meant everything of Egyptian culture, everything that he knew had to be stripped from, removed from his life in order for him to become a shepherd, a Midianite. He was shaped and prepared to take the next 40 years wandering in the desert. If he hadn't listened to his father-in-law and worked through all those struggles in the second 40 years, he would never have survived in the last 40 years. Our life shapes us. How has your life shaped you? Today's pain prepares us for tomorrow's purpose. I like that phrase. Today's pain prepares us for tomorrow's purpose. The way we prepare for circumstances, that will require perseverance is by proving faithful in the here and now. If you want to succeed at persevering, then you have to persevere in the moment of your struggle. You don't persevere by saying, oh, look at that. Boy, I'm glad I made it through that. Is that what they call persevering? You have to persevere in the midst of your struggle. You know, so often we get in the middle of our struggles and we're doing everything we can to throw them away. We want to throw them off. We want to get rid of it. Somebody take this. I don't want it. There's got to be a way out. And we spend all our energy looking for a way out. When God is saying, would you just trust me? Persevere in this. Know that I've got your back here. Walk through this. Like David said, we love this psalm. We love the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy rod and thy staff will comfort me. And it's in that context we say, oh, and you comfort me, and you prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. And we love that psalm at certain times in our life. But what does that psalm say? When I am going through the difficult moments of my life, I need to persevere. And I can. Because God, you've got me. Your rod and your staff. You use the rod to snap me, keep me in place. You use that staff to grab me and keep me in place. The staff, you know, the hook grabs the lamb, he guards the sheep to keep it in place where they need to, and that bottom part, it's like you hit the legs. Come on, move on, move on, move on. And sometimes we need God to take that stick. Oh, we live in the 21st century. Anybody uses a stick, they're going to jail because we can nail them for what? Being rough. So, oh, you're abusing the sheep. We caught you abusing your kid when you gave him a little, You know, and here the 23rd Psalm describes something that in today's world, David would be up on charges. Be careful. But David says, God's got my back. Even when I'm in the deepest, terrible, difficult time of my life, God has got me. Persevering is walking through, trusting in the moment, believing that God has got you while you're there. There's an author named Sam Chard, and he writes a lot of books on this subject. And he is known for this phrase, you'll grow only to the threshold of your pain. Now, we know that phrase in a different way. No pain, no gain. Anybody here that goes to a gym, you've heard that once or twice or 100 times. When you're on a diet and someone's counseling you, trying to get you through that diet, you've heard it over and over again. No pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. You got to have some pain. I have a lot of pain. I've been working in my yard this week. It's more pain than going to the gym. No pain, no gain. We must be prepared to persevere and do what it takes. Leadership is painful, but perseverance will prepare you for what's next. So what's next? God's presence is our source in perseverance. We're called to persevere. How do we get through it, Nino? God must be the source of our perseverance. So that means he's the source of the strength that gets us through. We can look at it and say, with true grit, I'm going to get through. With my purpose, I just make up my mind and I'm going and I don't care what anybody says. Done, I'm going. Really? That's going through self-will. And you can self-will a lot of things. There's a lot of people doing self-will in the name of God. God didn't get you through it. You got yourself through it because you said, I'm getting myself through it if it kills me. Okay, then put yourself through it. And maybe nothing wrong with that. But there's some persevering through life struggles that you cannot will yourself through it that easily. You need the hand of God. You need the will of God. You need the strength of God. We need the strength of God to go through each and every day of our life. Come on. In Exodus 33, verse 11, and then for the next few verses down to 15, which I've already read, Moses meets face to face with God. And there they are in that tent of meeting. And in verse 15, Moses says to God, if your presence doesn't go with us, then do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? Moses cried. He is crying out to God. He's petitioning God here. But you have to go back and say, why is he doing this? What's this here for? You got to go back to verses 1 through 6 of chapter 33, because Moses is crying in response to something God said in those 6 verses. You go back to verses 1 through 6, and God says in verses 1 through 6, he says, the Israelites could go into the promised land, but without me. That's what he says. He tells Moses, the Israelites can go back into the promised land, but without the Lord God. They go alone. Why is God so fed up that he tells Moses, the 1 million people you brought out here, They can go in there. In fact, you read that text, it says, God says, I'll even remove the Hivites, Perizzites, the other sites, Ezites, no sites. He just removes all the ites and zites. There's a whole list of them there. And God says, I will go before, I'll remove all of them. And you can go into the land that's flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go in with you. God's angry. Why? We'll go back a little further. Because this is what follows when Moses is spending time with God on the mountain, and they're having this wonderful time with God, and Joshua, son and on, is at the foot of the hill while Moses is up there having a time with God. And while they're all having this revival up on the mountaintop, the Israelites who are tired of waiting, they're down below taking all the gold and stuff that they took from Egypt, and now they've taken it and melted it down and fashioned it into a golden calf. And so when Moses comes back into the camp, there they are acting like a bunch of lewd know-nothings from late on a Saturday night party, just being lewd and disgusting on that golden calf. You probably can't even repeat if you knew the stuff that they were doing on that golden calf. It was absolutely disgusting behavior going on at that golden calf. And that's where Moses is like, I'm done. Oh, and God is so angry that God tells Moses, I have nothing more to do with them. That's what God tells Moses. I want nothing more to do with them. I gave them all this provision to take care of them as they go and travel and as they come into that land. And they used it to make a golden calf, to become lewd and disgusting, to worship some image out of a country I've taken them from. This is how they thank me. Now, what is a leader to do with that? What do you do if you're leading and you're trying, maybe you're leading a small group, or maybe you're leading in the youth, maybe you're leading in prayer, Nino. What do you do when you're leading in places and you're serving in places, and the people you're trying to help, it seems like they take one step forward and take 5 steps backwards? It's like, I can't seem to get anywhere with this. I can't seem to gain any traction with this. I'm trying to be the disciple that Jesus wants me to be, so I'm trying to be the leader of my own home and the leader of my own community, and I'm trying to be a light and salt, and I try to help, and I try to witness, and I try to share, and I try to love on my sisters and my neighbors and my cousins and my siblings. And it seems like the more I share, the more they just rub their sin in my nose. I'm not gaining any ground. I'm losing traction. Any of you ever feel that way? The more you try to reach somebody, the more you feel like you just lose ground, and the more they want you to know how much they hate what you believe. What are you supposed to do with that? What does Moses do? I already read for you the reaction. Then I went back to the root cause, because I wanted you to see the value of a good leader. The value of a good leader. Because God tells Moses, I'm not taking them in there. They can go on their own. I'm not leading them, because I'm not going with them. And Moses, he intercedes for Israel. And he begs God. And he says to God in that meeting where Joshua's outside the tent and Moses is inside the tent. And in that meeting, Moses is telling God, if you don't go, I can't go. If you don't lead from this tent and take us in, then I can't go. And God says to Moses, well, Moses, my anger isn't towards you. My anger is toward them. It's like you and I could look at our world and we're trying to reach our world for Jesus, and our world won't have it. And God got angry and say, well, God, they won't listen. And God says, yeah, but I got you. Let's go to heaven. Let's just call this whole thing off. Let's just have the rapture tonight and let them all go to hell. I mean, it's done. They won't listen. What would you do if God said to you tonight, I'm fed up with Connecticut. Half of you are fed up with Connecticut. Some of you, if you could work your will right now, you'd be on a plane. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Not knowing I'll be back again. It's like Connecticut is in the rear view mirror. What would happen if tonight God said to you, I am so done with Connecticut. I love you because you're my child. And I know you serve me, and I know you and I are like this. I'm so done with Connecticut. What would you do? Would you say, oh boy, let's go. God, what plane do I get on? Do we build an ark? Let's go now. Or would you stop and say, wait, there's a lot of lost people in Connecticut. I got family in Connecticut that aren't walking with you. They're well-meaning people that they're okay, that do good things, that try to be nice people, but they're lost. God, we can't let them go to hell. What did Abraham say when God said, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? I'm done with those cities. I'm fed up with them. What did Abraham do? He was a good leader. He was a mature leader of God. He was a man of God that had matured way beyond his years, and he was an old man. He got on his knees, Renee, and got into a prayer meeting. And he got alone with God, and he started bargaining with God. Would you for 50 people? Would you and Abraham starts bargaining and slowly, because God says, yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. And what did he get the number down to? 10? If 10, you're talking about twin cities of probably 50 to 100,000 people living there, and not like the twin cities in Minnesota where there's like 3 million people, but maybe a little bit less, but a lot. And God said, I won't judge them for 10 people. And they couldn't even find 10 people. But it didn't stop Abraham from getting in that prayer meeting and interceding. And who is he interceding on behalf of? He's interceding on behalf of 2 wicked cities that God says deserves judgment. So if we think Connecticut's a lost cause, or if God were to ever say, Connecticut is a lost cause, what would be the appropriate response for mature leaders of the church in Connecticut? To get on our knees and intercede on behalf of a lost state. And say, oh God, what if we could find just 50 more believers in this state? Would you save this state for 50 more believers? Would you save this state for just 10 more believers? Now that's Abraham's cry, and that's Abraham's prayer meeting. You have prayer meetings, don't you? Nino has prayer meetings. Moses is having a prayer meeting in the tent. And he's interceding on behalf of the Hebrews, on behalf of Israel. He says, oh God, please don't do this. Don't do this. Don't walk out on them. You brought them. These are your people. You brought them here. You have a purpose for them, God. Yes, they were terrible. They behaved terribly. What you saw in the camp was disgusting. But they're your people, God. Sometimes you and I see people really behaving badly. And we just want to throw in the towel. And just say whatever they deserve. And a good leader stops when God says, I'm done. A good leader gets on his knees and says, oh God, these are your people. Today in the gospel, it's not just one nation. It's not just one nation that God says they're my people. It's the whole world. The whole world is God's people. God may have plans, and he still has plans how he's going to work within the Middle East, specifically with Israel. But when Jesus died, he didn't die just for the state of Israel. He died for the whole world. So he died for everybody in Israel and everybody all around Israel and everybody outside of Israel, and that's you and me. He died for every one of us. Moses cries out for them, and he cries out for himself, and he says, Lord, I cannot do this without you. I cannot do this without you. And here's my last point, and I realize it's getting late, but I got the pulpit late to my defense. This is what my last point is. We must practice perseverance. It's a great idea. Makes great for going to conferences on perseverance. It's wonderful for people to write books about it. And there are a lot of them out there. People have written books on them. And we read them and say, oh, that was good for them, but I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yeah. We must practice perseverance. It's not enough to talk about perseverance. We have to do it. I talked about the middle ground. The hard thing about perseverance is you need it most when you're in the middle. You need it most when you're in the middle. You don't need it when you get started. You don't need it at the beginning. It's all exciting and new and fresh. It's in the middle. You don't need it at the finish line because there it is. You can see it. That's why the kids get spring fever in the end of May and June, because they can see it. 3 weeks that they've circled the calendar, put a star over the calendar, and half of those 3 weeks are all parties and get-togethers and reunions and such. They're done. It's not the finish line. It's not the starting gate. It's the middle. It's in the middle that you have to persevere. Everything looks bleak in the middle. Everything looks like a failure in the middle. Everything looks like a defeat and a delay in the middle. You know, in college, there's a reason why they save 0% refund on your tuition for after Columbus Day, or what are they changing that holiday to? Indigenous People Day. But that is in mid-October, right? What, 12th? So it's getting close to the second week of October. And a lot of colleges, they have a little bit of a fall break somewhere in October. And a lot of kids go home from college that week of October. They don't return. And it's right around that weekend that most colleges end tuition refunds, because it's the middle of your semester. You started at the end of August. You're going to end at the beginning of December. And in October, you're smack in the middle. And that's where your perseverance is needed the most. And that's where the larger number of people begin to quit. A lot of people drop out of college. It's still around over 4 years. It's still more than half of the students dropping out of college, because it's just too hard. College kids, young people, college is not supposed to be easy. All the brochures make it look like parties, but college is not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, a caveman could do it. Anybody could do it. Anyone could do it. College is for those who are ready to go on to the next level and have a little bit more brains and ability to process and think and work through. It's not supposed to be a party. It's supposed to be, an academic struggle to learn and to grow. No pain, no A's. No pain, no gain. But don't quit. It's messy in the middle. But church, God's still in it. In the middle of your marriage, it can get messy, but God's still in it. If Christ is in the center of your marriage, then God's still in it. Your kids, even though they may be a struggle in your life that they're getting to, some of you have your kids getting to teen years, and you're going to be days when you're going to say, oh God, let them turn 21 tomorrow. Persevere. Because you have hit a block, but you have hit the middle ground that requires your patience and your perseverance to see it through. See it through to the end. You will rejoice when they graduate from college and they're no longer living on your dime. You will rejoice when they walk down the aisle and they get married and they're no longer asking you for money. You will rejoice when it's time for you to retire and they're at the peak of their income bracket, and now you get to go and live with them. And fair turnabout is fair play, isn't it? Rejoice. The hard thing about perseverance is you need it most in that middle ground. Don't quit. God's still at work. So let me ask you, I have simple 3 questions. And we're ready to wrap up. Simple 3 questions. How has God prepared you in your past to persevere where you are today? I just want you to think about that. How has God prepared you in your past to persevere where you are today? Whether you're 90, there's some people online, or even in the house now, you're getting close to 90, right? I'm in your 80s, upper 80s. We have a few people in our church that are 88, 89 years old. So whether you're 90 or 10, Joy's around 10? Joy is 12? Wow, I thought you was older than I thought he was. So whether you're 12 or 90, how old is Alexa? 10, see? 10 or 90. Whether you're 10 or 90, you know, are you prepared for what God has for you? What have you done in your past to let God prepare you for where you are in your future? Second, what difference has God's presence made in your efforts to persevere? Have you or can you look at your life and see the hand of God on your life, through your life, through the difficulties of your life? I can see the hand of God in my life. From the time I was a child, I can see the hand of God and how he has helped me and stirred me, how he has been with me, how he has saved me through things. I've had the supernatural hand of God on my life from the time I was born. I've had the supernatural hand of God. I've had angels ministering to me through my childhood, and I can describe them for you, and I do often. I have had the hand of God, and I still have the hand of God on my life. I can see the hand of God. I can see his fingerprints on my life. Can you see the hand of God on your life? Number 3, why is a journey often hardest in the middle? Why is a journey the hardest in the middle? How have you learned to persevere in the middle when you're long past the starting line, but still a long way from the finish line? Why is it so hard in the middle? There are a lot of things in the middle you weren't prepared for. There are a lot of things in the middle you weren't planning on. There are a lot of things that in the middle, like in an athlete, you get to the middle of that race and your body is tiring before you get to the finish line. And any coach would tell you, work through it, run through it. Run through it, Bella. Run through it. Run through the pains. The swimmer who gets out there in the middle of that lane. There was one story I had just read, and I had to read it over and over again because there had to be a misprint of somebody who was trying to rescue somebody out at sea, and they had swum. It was a child who had swum for some multiple miles. The number of miles was so incredible. It was Some were up past like 30, 40 more miles. They swam. I said, what kid swims that much distance? It was a sheer will to live that made them swim that distance. A sheer will to live. I can imagine how much pain a child is going through in their arms and their legs, trying to get through something, trying to get to the other side, trying to find someone who also was lost out there. The middle's hard. It's where everything we know about ourselves is tested. Everything about you is being tested. You pass the test. Can you persevere to the very end? God's preparing you. I can guarantee one thing for you and me. God's preparing every last one of us for heaven. And every day we got to die to the old man. And every day we got to lay down things and pick up our cross and follow the Lord. Every day. Every day. And it's hard work. Christianity was never meant to be easy. Jesus never said, come and follow me and I will send you to easy street. Jesus told his disciples, they're going to hate you because they hated me. They're going to persecute you because they persecuted me. They're going to kill you because they want to kill me. But he said to his disciples, but you will overcome because I will overcome the world. He called his disciples to persevere to the end because he would give them the strength that they need to persevere to the very end. Can we persevere to the end of our race? Run the race in such a way to get that prize, Paul said. The prize is that well done, good and faithful servant when you cross that finish line into heaven. Can you run the race to the end?